So first of all, thank you for coming. My name is Sugata Sanyal. I'm founder and CEO of ZINFI. You must be wondering why suddenly an event in Austin? There are multiple reasons, which will hopefully become clear, but I'll tell you a little bit about ourselves, and then of course I'll introduce the panel, and then we'll get going. So we started as an agency called ZINFI, and we were primarily working as a channel marketing agency. This was, of course, before COVID. And we used to drive, based on MDF, partner event with end users in here. And it was an incredible experience. We never ran the big events. We always ran small networking events. We always saw value in that, but that's working for the brands. Then as an agency, we also ran these events for ourselves. And they were great learning moments for us because it's a cell-free zone. People come here essentially to connect, and you have a conversation that you generally don't get to have on these big, large events that are happening. And partnership leaders, they're doing an amazing job. Vince Manzione, an Ultimate partner, he's doing an amazing job. So there's large industry events. So we felt that there's time to start this up. But there is a reason behind that, is that we as a partner relationship management software provider, most of our customers are large enterprise customers with very, very complex ecosystems, all kind of partners, right? And then we also compete, but they're also partners of ours. There are a couple of folks here that use tools from PartnerStack, right? But they are in a different part of the partner relationship management universe. And I talked to those CEOs, and it is clear that even though we provide a lot of ecosystem management tool, we don't connect ourselves talking to each other a lot. We use a tool I'll do an introduction, from Antonio's company called Tricentis in QA automation. Which is part of DevOps, right? It's an integrated part of DevOps. If you look at the history of DevOps over the last 15 years when it started versus where it is now, it is a highly structured methodology. Of course, it varies completely differently if you're manufacturing a $2 object that going through a high volume manufacturing line. That DevOps stream is very, very different if you're building custom software, right? So from a structural perspective, DevOps is a framework, but the application of it greatly varies. PartnerOps is even more complex because if you look at marketing ops, revenue ops, sales ops, these are relatively defined and structured today. They have steps and methodologies. You go search Amazon, there's not a single book on PartnerOps. And yet, Jay McBain says that 75% of the worldwide economy flows through it, right? So we see as an opportunity to even work with our own competitors to bring together methods, because today when we think about DevOps, we think about tools like Atlassian. We think about tools like Tricentis. By default, they're methodologies that are embedded into the tools. So you need methods, but then you also need tools. The tools cannot evolve without the methods. I cannot throw an Excel at you and say, hey, I just made you a financial manager, right? Same exact thing. You cannot be a finance ops manager today without tools. So we see a huge opportunity to bring together professionals like the panelists like yourselves to strike up a conversation. So build a framework. We put something, ourselves. You can even argue we're copying the DevOps framework. The whole, steps around strategize, recruit, onboard, enable, co-market, co-sell, incentivize, and accelerate. So that's our framework, equivalent to a DevOps framework. The panels are going to be focused around those topics. I've already done podcasts with every one of them. On an average, there's like 100 years of expertise in each panel. There is no way I'm going to get through it in 45 minutes, right? So bear with me. I want to try to do, from a facilitation point of view, this is, I'm not going to talk, but I'm going to try to get them going. But thank you again for coming. We're going to get started. I wanted to do a quick introduction. So first is Antonio. Antonio is head of global partner ops at Tricentis. I'm going to let each and every one of them do a little bit of introduction so that I don't butcher it, but I do want to introduce them. Then is Mary Catherine Wilson. You have in your little brochure their names and little bio in there. And then Ted Finch from Chanimal, and then Jennifer Rima from Apollo. So Antonio, do you want to take a minute and introduce yourself?
Sure thing. First of all, thank you everybody for being here. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces, especially a few faces that I haven't seen in many years, Fred being one of them. So I've been a partnerships guy. I'm an engineer. I'm a telecom engineer with a little bit of computer science sprinkle in there. I used to work in telecom for many years, and then IBM many moons ago, 15 years ago, threw me into the world of partnerships. And I spent almost 15 years being truly on the sales side of partnerships. And in the last year, I transitioned into being the head of global partner operations at Tricentis. It's a role that I purposefully looked for because I've always done partner ops on my side. It's always been that thing that you do at night, somebody happens to do it. I wanted my teams to focus on what they do best, which is creating partnerships and driving partnerships, while I handled everything in the back end. It's a passion of mine, and so that's what I'm doing now.
Thank you. Mary Catherine?
Wonderful. Good afternoon. Mary Catherine Wilson. I started my career at Accenture, so I was a software engineer, but not by trade. And then spent a couple of decades with some of the people in this room at Dell, where I got all my channel experience, kind of from the ground up and building Dell's channel program. And from everything, there was no partner ops sales. It was us, kind of in a room. I now in a very interesting position because I've gone to the other side. So I work for a company called Future Tech. We're an IT solutions provider. We provide a lot of solutions to the federal government and big enterprises. And it means I'm on the flip side. So now I'm in the consumer, if you will, or the customer of all of the different partnerships in the ecosystem. So have just a very kind of unique perspective because I do know a lot about the inner workings of partner ops and marketing ops and all of those, but now sitting in a customer seat, I can feel the good and the bad and the ugly. So,
thank you. Ted?
Let's see, I'm the CEO of Chanimal, which stands for Channel Animal. So I've been doing channel marketing and channel sales for 30 years, built the world's largest channel launch company from 13 of us to 4,000 people. We would go out and give 20 demos a week times 4,000, 80,000 presentations per week. And then in the meantime, I wrote the marketing plan, launched Netscape, former instrument Tom Clancy, was a vice president General Electric, senior vice president Motorola. But with Chanimal itself, it's been around for 30 years, got over 1,000 pages of content. Just about who's who in the entire world for channels has registered at some time or another with Chanimal. I also run Chanimal University, so I've been training channel managers for the last 20 years. So I've trained over 10,000 channel managers. COVID, everything went online. And so now any of you can just go to Chanimal University and sort of level sets the entire teams and just has electives and courses and all kinds of cool stuff.
Thank you. Jennifer.
And I'm Jennifer Rima, and if I'm looking shiny, it's because I'm wearing a sweater and it's 80 degrees outside, so don't mind me, and the light doesn't help. So I'm leading partnerships at Apollo.io. On the opposite side of the group here, I'm more in the startup SMB space. Has anyone heard of Apollo.io? Yeah, okay, great. I've spoken to a couple and they didn't know, so I hope you're liking our product. But I joined 3 years ago to start our partner programs from scratch. Before that, I lived abroad in the Middle East, in Dubai, and that's where I started my partnerships career. And I was focusing on B2C partnerships, and then now overseeing our team, focusing on B2B partnerships, agencies, affiliates, technology, and startup ecosystem. So I'm excited to learn today from the rest of the panelists. But yeah, if you have any questions, I'd love to chat.
Thank you. So I have spoken to each of them, done 1 hour podcast. They are available on our website, and there's an enormous amount of material to go through. So instead of trying to go through details, I thought we'll kind of take a step back a little bit, and we'll start with the history. A few of us here being around a little more than a couple of years. And so I think it'll be good to kind of dial back and look at this whole word called ecosystem. So I'd love to have Antonio kind of reflect a little bit, some of the things you discussed with me. Mm-hmm. When you think about what you used to call the channel 10 or 15 or 20 years ago versus kind of now, in your frame of mind, what was it and what is it now?
It's a great question. It's a little bit of a loaded question, but it's a great question. Why do I say loaded? Because I feel like amongst the partnership people in the industry these days, channel has kind of like an old school bad connotation. There you will find some people that will say channel is dead. Channel is way far away from being dead. There's industries like manufacturing, like telecom, where channel is not only alive, it's freaking thriving. And so whenever I hear those people saying that, it's like, So it really truly started, and at least from my days on IBM when I got thrown into this, channel was And still the notion of that is resale and distribution, right? It's purely you have an ecosystem of partners that will take your product and will resell. That little by little started growing into Embed. And then from Embed, we started getting into other kinds of partnerships like co-sell, like tech partnerships and integrations, and so on and so forth, right? Referral kind of like works in a way that is part of channel, but it's not. Referral has always been like a little bit of a peripheral thing. But that's where I think the connotation, or the real definition of when people say channel against ecosystems, channel against partnerships, it's resale and distribution against more of the newer hybrid things, which is more of a co-sell motion, of a tech partnerships motion, et cetera.
And we'll double click on all of those, but I want to go to Mary Catherine a little bit. Now that you're on the other side, I'd love to kind of hear from you the perspective of what channel was, then transformation to an ecosystem, and how does it look from a partner perspective? Future Tech is a very large, solution provider, so I'd love to kind of hear that perspective.
Yeah, I agree with Antonio. Right? That it used to be a mechanism for getting product A to product B, and you took margin, and those who put the best margin on the product, won. And I think we can all agree with just the technology landscape in the past 20 years, right? I mean, it looks completely different. So, I think the biggest thing that changed is the technology and the software, and just represented from all of the various, different types of companies. And so your solution providers, where I could make a good living on just resell, can't do that anymore, right? I said I spent a couple of decades at Dell. Dell is a great commoditizer, right? So now I got to go seek other margin pools, right? And so I seek services and I seek integration. And I just think that the technology landscape as a whole has forced a lot of, whether you call them integrators or ecosystem to bring all of the ecosystem partners together for what the customer needs, right? Because that's just gotten a lot more complex. Future Tech's kind of in this niche of, we're not in the top 10, which is in the billions, right? Those are your large global SIs. And nor are we, we're in the top 75. So nor are we, smaller where there's thousands of partners, which I know, many in this room have to deal with the partner ops of those as well. So I just think it's really incumbent upon us to simplify it for our customers, and to do that, you really have to understand how those entities work together for them.
Awesome. So Ted, going back to you, you have been on the training front, right, for some years, and you have seen the evolution of the channel from a skill development perspective. Can you walk us through a little bit this evolution that has happened and happening, and it's getting even more fragmented? Every type of partners, if you're a large manufacturer or a solution provider, you have to deal with, right? Can you reflect from that perspective? What evolution have you seen and you're seeing right now?
Well, it was very interesting. When I first started, it was mom and pops, then it moved to retail. I remember when our first group came in and said, there's a CompUSA with shopping carts. Okay, so that took off for a while with all the packaged goods, and then it sort of moved from there into the VARs and the system integrators, and it started growing bigger. And then we got the SaaS thing, which the biggest problem there was resellers trying to figure out how to finance this, how to fit it into their model. And so, so far as the training, most of it was always just getting everybody up to speed. What's really interesting is some of the things that we learned from the old days of even retail, like the reseller recommendation rate, how to create an influence within an individual reseller. It applies to these other market channels, but a lot of the people that never had that experience didn't actually see how that worked. So now they struggle on how to get that reseller recommendation rate up with the reseller. Why before we would just hand them free product, and the resellers sell what they know what they use. So I've seen that metamorphosis. So the training that I do, and I constantly stay involved in the consulting part, where I work with 7 to 18 companies at a time in every week, just so I can keep my pulse on all of that. So as things start to morph and start to change, then the training material starts to reflect that.
Thank you. So Jennifer, when you and I were talking about Apollo, you kind of built that whole ecosystem ground up. But your partners are very, very different from a traditional manufacturing reseller. So can you, first of all, tell a little bit about who Apollo is and the composition of your partners and the journey you went through building that ecosystem out.
Yeah, and it's funny, I've only been in partnerships for like 12 years, so when people say channel, I'm like, what is channel? Please explain it to me. So as I mentioned, I joined Apollo 3 years ago, and for those that are not familiar with Apollo, we have a database. We're an all-in-one sales tool for sellers to go to market. So if you have an ideal customer profile, you can use our database and find those contacts, and then you can push them into sequences. We have an engagement tool, and we've most recently launched conversation intelligence. So when you're on calls or your sales team is on calls, they can actually, we transcribe them, we give you a recap, we tell you what next steps are. So we're very cost effective, and our audience is SMB. We're definitely moving more upmarket. We have one main competitor. I won't say who they are, but because I'm sure you all know. But so when I joined Apollo, I used Apollo before, which was great because I knew how powerful the product was. But as I mentioned, when I lived in the Middle East, like channel, no one would even know. I mean, if I didn't know, no one would know. But partnerships was starting to become very popular. But those partnerships, it was just how it differed than sales. It was not transactional. It was like, let's actually build a relationship, which is what I actually really love. So agencies, it's very similar to solution partners, where we work with agencies and they're reselling Apollo on our behalf. They're an extension of our sales team. When I first joined, I focused just on our affiliate program because I knew we had a ton of really happy customers that wanted to refer us and they wanted to get commission. So I was a one-person team for a year, and I focused on like, where can we get the most revenue? And so that was the main focus. My North Star metric was, what can partnerships drive of our total revenue? And that's still the same metric today. And so our affiliate program drove 80% of our revenue. And then now agencies is driving 20%. So we're all in on agencies. We have native integrations with HubSpot and Salesforce and Pipedrive. And those three platforms have massive partnership ecosystems. And so we're really riding off of those. And then lastly is technology, where we have an open API. Companies can build to that API, and we basically do co-marketing together. We're going to start doing co-selling with them. We're a small partnerships team, so we're just a team of 6. And so we're kind of in this crawl phase, even though we built the foundation, and now we're driving 10% of our Apollo revenue. So we're just getting started. But yeah, that's my journey. It's a little different, but yeah, there's so much more that we could do.
Awesome. So that's a great segue, because we're going to get into the PartnerOps framework, right? The first is strategy. Second is recruit, third is onboard, fourth is enable for the first panel. So let's talk. I'm going to throw out a couple of use cases so we can follow these swim lanes. One is a mid-market use case, right? That you are trying to build something like what Jennifer did. Another one is an enterprise use case where you have an existing partner base, right? And you can pick either or you can cover both. So each of you, please. So starting with Antonio, when it comes to the word strategy, what does it mean for you when it comes to a mid-market ecosystem where you're going to go build and grow, and or enterprise where you're going to maintain or optimize or prune or whatever that means? So what does that mean to you?
That is a great question. It all starts with your product, right? Where does your product fit in the grand scheme of things? Whenever you are looking to expand the total addressable market that you have, right? It all starts with your foundation internally. Is your team set up to truly build partnerships and to truly attract other companies to work with you? Not to work for you, that's important, to work with you. Partners are not there to be your pipeline generation channel. Partners are not there to just do the bookings for you, right? You need to find that true middle ground, whether it's a triple win, a win for a customer, a win for a partner, and then you win. And so whenever talking about strategy, from a PartnerOps perspective, I always think about the fundamentals that we have internally. Do we have the proper alignment? Do we have the proper corporate goals to make this work? Do we have the proper setup in a sense of like, hey, everybody's here to collaborate and not have internal channel, as we would say, channel conflict, right? Sales against partnerships against marketing. Because we always get into the battle of attribution, right? Once you have those fundamentals, then you need to think about your product in the market. Where does it fit? Let's talk about a little bit about SIs. SIs and GSIs don't make their money on a 20% margin. They never will. You need to have a force multiplier on top of you, right? So for every dollar that you make, how many dollars can they make on top of you as services? And that's your story. That's your compelling story of where are the partners that complement you? Where are the partners that can build on top of you? Where are the partners that can actually bring together a solution to a customer that includes you, right? And that's your better together story in terms of a strategy and in terms of building. Because Jennifer talked about an ICP in terms of building your IPP, your ideal partner profile. Your ideal partner profile comes from your ICP. If you don't have a solid ICP, your IPP is not going to be good, right? And so from there, I do have a framework that I'm not going to go into, but it's 5 pillars around your systems, your metrics, your enablement, and then your, why am I blanking on the line? These are my pillars. Exactly. On the last one, but basically it's all around partner experience. You can have great metrics. You can have great systems. Oh, programs was the fourth. You can have great programs. You can have great enablement. But if there's friction in the middle and there's partner experience that is bad, a partner is going to move away. And so the system, I guess this was a very long answer to say, your strategy really truly starts internal and making sure that you have the fundamentals to actually go out. Otherwise, a partner is going to take a look at you and it's going to say like, dude, you don't even have your shit together, right? So
We're going to definitely edit that part.
sorry about that.
That's okay. So going back to Mary Catherine, talk to us a little bit from your perspective as a partner perspective. Companies like Tricentis and others strategizing, they want to go recruit an SI. What does it feel like? What does it look like? How many emails? How many calls? How does the courtship look like? Like, how do you decide from your strategy perspective who to partner up with?
Well, that's an interesting. I think from when I was on the partner side, I always called them customers, right? Because they're customers. I mean, this is so simple, and you guys are going to be like, yeah, of course. You have to listen to your customer, right? And I think the truest partnerships are those where the value statement is understood, right? You understand what you're getting from your partner, and they understand what they're getting from you, because everything else, I mean, you can do transactions, you can take down revenue, but you have to understand how you're helping them to grow and how they're helping you to grow, right? That's where the magic's going to happen. It gets harder at scale, of course, and depending on who you're calling on and who you're courting, they could be very large, siloed, or they could be smaller companies. I mean, even some billion-dollar companies are still run pretty lean, and those people are wearing a lot of hats, right? So. Just the appreciation for that and to understand, making it simple, whether it's, so some of the strategy is who's going to help me to grow, right? What are those products that my customers are demanding and that I can bring to them? There's a lot of noise, right? I mean, we all have worked with distributors, and many times those distributors are guards, right? They protect partners and companies from the onslaught of, like, there's a whole line. I went to a distributor conference last year. I'm pretty sure there was about 400 to 500 booths. Overwhelming. So, I think just listening to the customer, understanding that joint value will put you on the right path.
Mm-hmm. So going to you, Ted, when you teach in Chanimal or the consulting that you do, how do you help companies to put their strategy together from a go-to-market wise through an ecosystem? Is there a framework you use?
Well, usually I figure out what the framework is when I do the assessment, where I go through the 4 P's of the marketing mix: product, positioning. First thing the resellers look for is product positioning, which essentially give me 3 to 5 reasons why you'd be a fool not to buy this product. You answer that question, now they can move to the next stage. How do I make money? So that part right there is determined by the elements of your partner program. So when I go down through the next part, I look at their pricing, I look at their market. Are they in no man's land with the pricing? Or are they a secondary product that can, like a mouse, that has to be sold. I mean, they could still sell that through a channel, but they're not going to make a lot of money off of mouse, but they will make the money off the $5,000 server. But is yours a defensible product also? Will it prevent, if you sell it, will they then go to your competitor to get the other piece that you don't have, or do you have to pick that up too? So I have to sort of figure out where that product fits within the overall, channel part for that company. So product price and then placement over there, that's when I get into the program itself. How are they going to make money? And so, that's when we'll talk about the margins. Do they have a pricing model where they can afford a channel? Or do we have to go back to the pricing section to try to fix it? The next thing is, do they have alliances? The quickest way to build a partner channel is form an alliance with somebody else. They've got a channel with one company. We pulled in 4,000 partners within 90 days just by patching into that. So, I try to understand each of those. And then the promotional side of this too, and that is, are they generating demand for the product, or do they need to find a partner type that is going to be able to do that themselves? What are they doing so far as their SEO? What about trade shows? What about ads? What about, what kind of things? So I usually assess all of those, and then based on that, then I'll wrap up a master plan of action that will address, I'd usually say, if you were my best friend and I had to keep my job, then here's what I do. Step 1, step 2, step 3, and then once we solidify that, we execute with a vengeance.
Terrific. So Jennifer, let's dial back 4 years ago when you came into this role, and Apollo sells into all types of customers, right? 10-person company to 10,000s of companies. As you're kind of envisioning this ecosystem of, affiliates and agencies and now, solution providers that you're pulling in, how did you approach the strategy piece of it?
Yeah. Because I was one person, I knew I had to focus on being very specific of what our 4 partner programs are, because then I would if I would speak to a partner and they say they would want to do one specific thing, I would get so distracted, and that's not scalable, especially if you're a lean team. So when I first joined, again, because I knew the product, I was like, we definitely would want to have a referral motion. Apollo has millions of customers, let's definitely leverage this. But I spent a lot of time working cross-functionally with sales, with our product team, asking our product team, hey, we're serving this customer, and this customer has many different needs for their tech stack. Do we need to have product partnerships in place? So I knew that leveraging our API and these integrations was one focus area for us. But that takes a lot of time, so I did wait until I hired someone on our team who specializes in technology partnerships. So working with our product team, knowing that we're not going to build everything ourselves, and we would have to rely on other partners that our customers would need seamless integrations with, was one. Apollo was at a stage where we had product market fit. We are a product-led growth company where customers can come and self-serve. It's very, very seamless. And so we wanted to make sure our partnerships were the same. Because I knew that when you're starting partnerships at a company, you're doing a lot of internal enablement because no one knows what partnerships is. So that's what I spent a lot of my time of just making sure that before we recruited partners, which we're going to get to, just making sure all of my internal stakeholders knew the benefits of having these relationships with these different partners. So we launched integration partnerships because we knew there was a need. Apollo had a big customer base, but we need to focus on retention and adoption. And focusing on those 2 metrics, you have to have integrations. Otherwise, customers are going to churn to go to another tool where there are those integrations in place. The affiliate motion was the easiest to set up just because it was a rev share. We have a PRM that we use. We were able to onboard a lot of partners. Before we started onboarding partners, we of course set up the foundation to make sure that when a partner joined, we sent them an email. We were constantly staying top of mind. So with the strategy was building the foundation. Antonio mentioned making sure the foundation was in place, setting up the dedicated landing pages, again, because I was working, even though Apollo was about 200 people at the time when I had joined, we were very much a startup. And so I had to be super scrappy. And I just made sure that when I said, hey, I've seen in our competitors, I've seen what programs they've had. I did a lot of research, and I had joined partnership leaders where I learned okay, I'm in the US now. What are what's the terminology for these different partner programs? We were very specific on setting those 4, and then again, I worked very cross-functionally to make sure that before we went to market with our different partner programs, everyone internally knew the benefit of partnerships and that it was something that would stick around long term. So that's where we're at today.
Let's talk a little bit about someone like Tricentis, or going back to your IBM or any other experiences, right? When you have an existing ecosystem, do you think about recruitment?
Yes, absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely, because an ecosystem is always evolving. So partnerships come and go. Yes, you can have long-standing partnerships, but the reality is that companies change. Your company changes, every other company changes, right? And goals tend to change, be it because of the economy, be it because they're going up market, or they're shrinking. There's many variables, right? And so you always have to keep a pulse on your strategy and on your partnerships to understand if there's still that initial alignment, right? And so as you grow, as you evolve, a partnership strategy is never set in stone. It's never said and done, and then you walk away. It's an always constant evolution. Why? Because the markets change. Again, your company changes, everybody changes. And if we are all familiar, hey, maybe a few years ago, it was very clear cut to say a VAR, a distributor, and an MSP, right? Now, a lot of companies do a lot of different things, and trying to put a company in a little bit of a bucket, a lot of times a company is going to say like, well, I do a few other things, right? And it's just because of that, yeah, you always have to think about recruitment. You always have to think about evolution. You always have to think about moving away from most partner teams, most partner programs fall into the Pareto principle of 80-20. 20% of your partners bring you 80% of your revenue, right? And in order for you to move away from that Pareto principle and grow that 20% into a 30, 40, 50, you need to keep evolving. You need to keep recruiting partners that are truly aligned with you at that point in time.
So again, from the partner view, but going back to the Dell world, I had a boss at Dell which used to say, you should be always hiring. Whether you have a position open or not, you should be always hiring because you look for talent, right? So can you tell us a little bit from both what Antonio said, that as an established brand, if you have an ecosystem, doesn't matter, you will always be recruiting, right? How does it feel like to be on the other side? Do you get called every day? Everybody's chasing you because they're always recruiting.
Yes. Too many emails, too many calls. I think that to me, there's a balance. Like when I'm getting called on, I actually don't want it to be too easy, maybe, to get into your recruitment process or your, sometimes I'll fill out a form and click, and immediately get an email. I'm there. It's like, well, so are my 100,000 friends. Like there's a little bit of balance and tension that you want, right? Because I want to bring that unique value proposition to your company, right? And help you to grow. On the converse, I've had some companies where it's maybe taken 3 or 4 months and some just, 10 phone calls. That's not good either, right? Because I could be selling for you all this time and you're creating this barrier. So there is somewhere in between. We want to make sure, you want to make sure we're solvent as a partner, that we're trained, that we're certified. But then, I agree with Antonio. We're seeing a lot of M&A in this space now, right? And in technology too. So those companies that you thought, oh, they did this, tomorrow they do this and this, and now they're not on your radar. And I did have that experience at Dell as well. We had done a lot of acquisitions, and so there was a company that was not at one point willing to sell. We actually bought them and acquired, and they were the top 10 partner. Well, thank goodness that I had met them and fixed some of the problems that they had originally, because you just never know. You never know who you're going to work for, who's going to work for you, right? We all know that. So I think that's true in this space as well.
So Ted, when you think about if I dial back maybe 10 or for sure 20 years ago, recruitment meant you went to a trade show, you sponsored some events with the channel company, you paid a distributor to get you a list, and you called some friends that who knew your reseller, right? Today, when I look at this audience, we had 4 registration out of 76 from email. Rest of it came from social and referrals, right? How has the world of recruitment evolved in your mind, and what do you teach in Chanimal? What you used to do then, and what do you do now?
Well, we first started with emails, of which the response was really good. One of the companies right here in Austin was Interspire. We sent out an email campaign. We recruited 768 resellers in 6 weeks. That worked out great. When COVID kicked, emails died because there were too many emails, too much overflow. So now we have to be a little smarter. I still start with emails. I still start with the method that is cheapest. So once I do the emails, when that pulls in, all we're looking for is a guinea pig partners. I work with a lot of new startup programs, even like SurveyMonkey, a well-established company, but no partner program. So we start that way. We get our first batch of resellers, sort of, again, the guinea pigs, but they get the next batch. We'll use the forms that are on their website. We'll try to do that way. Next things for those specific type, if we're dealing with enterprise ones, emails aren't going to work. We have to make phone calls. Otherwise, I try to move into alliances as fast as I can. The reason is because, like with one company, they solved one of the problems with an HP server with their software. So I just trained 9 channel managers in Europe from HP. So I knew that they had the problem, and so I said, why don't we connect you with this other company? Because you guys are having a problem with your server. So I connect with the other company. The company then went in. HP had over 4,000 partners. 3,000 partners came on within their program within the next 90 days. And we had a bigger problem, how to onboard that many partners. So these alliances are where they really kick in. Plus, even like when I was at VP at Goldmine Software, I walked in, they had 700 partners. 13 months later, we had 7,000 partners. So we formed alliances. We came out there, instead of just Goldmine Software, we came out with all the other pieces that would wrap in back then as Salesforce automation. And we did a national roadshow. So what we did is we sponsored it. So we got a free ride. We charged each of them $2,500. It cost $8,000 per event. We made $2,500 an event. That was our fully loaded cost. And we went out there expecting maybe if we got 70 partners, we're averaging 250 partners showing up at each one of those events. That was really effective. Other ways that I've used for recruiting that still works. CRN and some of the other publications have sponsorship type things. What you're looking for is someone who could break through those emails. Someone who's subscribing to those publications. Well, I saw a lot of the ones that were there, like there was one there from IBM, and it was like, okay, useless just about this product. So what we did is, if you have a product that they can use internally, then let's say it's a CRM, or even like with Interspire, it was e-commerce. They want to be able to do some of their commerce that way. So fine, you put it in there, free copy. They're not your salespeople. They're not your customer unless you're Amway. Otherwise, that's what they do, is they'll go for the free offers. You just need the connection. Once you make that connection, then you can get in. So on that, we recruited like 79 partners in 30 days, just using that approach. So, and then I also still use a roadshow model. Right now during COVID, we did virtual roadshows. So I have some virtual roadshow samples that I've set up before, where again, we get 5 different products, 5 different companies. That one company I told you that we built these channel programs out for Apple, Intel, Adobe, Mitsubishi, Canon, software, hardware, everything else. We did that from national roadshows, taking 5 products out at a time, doing it that way. So those are the ones that really bring in a lot of the partner really fast, like thousands of partners where I built some of these programs up real quick. But it's the email still, just because you got to work out your orientation, you got to work out the rest of the kinks internally with the team before you turn on the heat. With Interspire, we brought in 700 partners that fast. By the way, we lost over 200 of those during the orientation and had to do hard recruiting, calling them up and everything else to get them all back in, because we did not have our act together. So after that, I started a little slower, get the first batch on board, make sure all your processes, your orientation, your marketing meetings, getting the product on their website, put them on the resale locator, all those things are all knocked out first. And then once the company sort of has that down as the machine, then we ramp it up and turn up the heat and can knock these things out.
And we'll come to onboarding and enablement, because that's a very critical piece.
Yeah.
But I want to go to Jennifer. Talk to us a little bit. What did your recruitment journey look like? Because you kind of built this ground up. It is a product-led growth. So did you have any assistance from there? Were there partners already using it in their business? How did you start?
Yeah. This sounds very manual, and I work with an automation company, but I would go, so it depends, the recruitment strategy depends on the partner program. But again, since I focused at the beginning on the lowest hanging fruit program, which was the referral motion, I would go on to LinkedIn and I would see which influencers were talking about tools like Apollo, and I would ask them if they wanted to become a partner. That worked at the beginning. I think when I was a one-person team, I said, I just need to focus on getting a ton of partners in the door. And now we're at a completely different stage where, yes, it's great to have thousands of partners, but I've realized that 20% of those are the ones that are actually active. So, and it also took time. I refined the strategy to see who is actually like our ideal partner based on now, we're 3 years down the road, and we've seen that there's a specific type of agency that is actually, sending us more customers, and we have really good relationships with them. And so we look at who these agencies are, and then we say maybe we should tackle those as well. So the strategy definitely changed over time on how we recruit, but I, of course, like would use tools like Apollo, where I would identify we want a HubSpot partner. We would do outreach to them through cold outreach, and that worked really well. Like, luckily, Apollo is a more established brand, and so people in the SaaS space do know us. So it's been easy to onboard partners. We do get to recruit partners. Sorry, we do get a lot of inbound, so we're lucky in that sense. But again, I was looking on G2 to see who was writing reviews about us, and I would also speak with our sales team and our R&D team when it came to the integrations, which tools were being brought up most frequently from customers that we don't have an integration with. So it was, again, doing a lot of cross-functional research internally to see, like, what do our customers actually need? Like, what integrations do they want? I would speak to our CS team, and if somebody was churning, a lot of times it's because we actually don't have a native integration with a specific tool. And so that has helped me understand, like, who we actually need to recruit. But again, it just has been different based on the different partner programs. So we were very, like, volume-based, and now it's focused on, like, quality over quantity. But I think it takes time, and it took us 3 years, and now we're in a space of, like, okay, let's not onboard 100 partners a week. Let's really focus on the quality side.
Terrific. Let's go to your large ecosystem experiences. With the assumption you're always recruiting, right? And you also have existing partners in place. So talk about now we're getting into the fun part that you love, which is ops part of PartnerOps, right? So you're partnered up. How does it start looking like now that you're recruiting, you're onboarding on one path, and you have existing partners, you're enabling them on another? How does that look like? Can you talk a little bit of the framework, both from a programs-wise and maybe people structure-wise? How do you set that up? Field and central and region, all those stuff.
Yeah, that's a great question. So globalization is a whole different element because every region, every country is different, and there's nuances. There's different thresholds for revenue and things like that, right? But it all starts with friction. You need to make sure you remove friction. Onboarding and activation it's like dating. It's that first date. If that first date goes wrong, guess what? You just set the stage for the rest of the partnership, right? It's going to be an uphill battle from that point. So you need to make sure that from a systematic standpoint, that you have all the elements necessary to make sure that onboarding and activating your partner, is not only simple and easy, but also it makes sense. That you're clearly articulating and setting the foundation for your partnership to thrive. And that means properly setting not only agreements, but properly setting SLAs, properly setting MOUs, properly setting goals, targets, timelines for all of those things. If that is not set, that's when you see partnerships like your leader coming to you and saying, like, hey, how is your partnership with Accenture going? It's like, well, not great. Right, because you never set the stage. You never agreed to timelines, to goals, to way of working, right? On the flip side, enablement is a thing that is always under constant evolution. If you have the power of a Microsoft, of an AWS, of a Google, of a big powerful house like that, where you have partners truly wanting to come to you, flocking to understand and be part of your ecosystem, enablement is in a sense a little bit simpler, right? But the smaller you are, the more methodical you have to be. Why? Because just throwing a partner at onboarding time into 8 hours of training, it's not gonna work, because more likely than not, when you are building the partnership, you might have a couple of deals in the works, but you don't have a lot of pipeline generated yet. And by the time you've generated that pipeline, guess what? That enablement has gone through 1 year and gotten out the other. It's gone. So you have to think about setting the stage for on-time enablement when deals come in. And that means setting the tools to understand a deal came in with certain parameters. What can I provide to my partner right now on time to make sure that we together close the deal, right? So it's becoming the industry, and the more I talk to partner leaders around the industry, it's becoming this kind of like micro drip of enablement based on the pipeline that you've generated and the strategy that you've set with your partners.
So I want to double click, and I'll go to Mary Catherine Wilson on this. But Jay McBain has been kind of talking about quite loudly over the last few years is that as we move from this reseller model to sort of an ecosystem model, the old model was somebody sells, you give them a commission. Correct. Now the whole model is moving towards point of value. So when you have point of value, you have point of enablement. So I think there's a big point that Antonio brought, and we discussed this in the podcast, is that traditionally enablement has been focused on making the reseller go through the entire journey, learn how to sell the product, learn how to deploy, learn how to maintain, learn how to upgrade, learn to upsell, all of those things. But if you go to Jennifer's world, they're upfront, they're affiliate, they're agency, they bring customers in, maybe some of them move up. So I double clicked on that because, there is a lot of depth in that whole discussion of enablement, which we'll possibly have not time today. But Antonio has a great podcast on this. Please go take a listen. But I do want to go to you from a partner perspective. You talked a lot about friction.
Yeah.
And you talked about partner advisory council. So I would like you to kind of take the PAC concept a little bit. Mm-hmm. How someone like you as a partner provide feedback to Jennifer and Antonio through that format, and how you effectively ran it, in Dell and other organizations to make onboarding better, make enablement better by removing friction.
Yeah, we talked about having a number of councils too, right? And because the 80-20 rule, you can't ignore the 20% that are driving 80% of your revenue. You just can't, right? So hopefully they have loud voices and are giving you constructive feedback that you can scale, and so you cannot ignore those. I was in a marketing position. Those individuals that came to that council were largely sales makers, CEOs, maybe a vendor manager. So I wasn't getting personally the information I needed, so I created a marketing council and did the same thing. What do you need in the way of enabling for your go-to-market, right? And just the different, it was okay to have multiple councils. I now sit on various councils, right? But so does the sales leader of Future Tech, and then I'm giving, some marketing. I love your little drip, because I think what I've seen evolve, right? And it's interesting. We talked about, channel seems to be this word that, I'm moving a product from A to B, right? We got retail channels, and this partnership is something that really have evolved and totally different. And I think from an enablement standpoint, I still find some of the channel,
the brand,
the big brands, check these boxes. You have to have the marketing, you have to have the sales, you have to have this, you have to have that, and one has to do that in order to comply. And again, there's that balance, and I understand that. There's also some new and upcoming companies that we work with who are delivering some of that enablement in snippets, right? All of us are on our phones and can't pay attention for so long, right? Me included. And so they're delivering really good snippet content. Because what are my sales makers that I actually want to sell that product? What are they going to listen to? I need to consume it very quickly. So I find some of the smaller, more nimble enablement is happening with that way. A quick 10-minute little session. It's this is what you need to know. Because once they sell it once and they need to know the 201, 301, then you'll get them, right? Yep. Then you can do all of the, face-to-face and those type of things. So I've loved that, because then the sales makers can also choose, I've got a customer and and then they can bring them in. So
amazing. So certification, you're really passionate about. So let's talk about, in this world of drip enablement, where you don't need to go through 500 hours of training to get a certificate in the end. By then you may not have a job, or the deployment may have changed. What does certification look like in today's world versus what used to be, when resellers had to go through boot camps, go through lunch and learn, go get so many people tech certified? How do you certify somebody today, Ted?
Well, actually, I want to change the order of that. So and also you talked about, this segment was going to talk about the onboarding and enablement, and also with the certification. So first of all, I've heard over here the 80-20 rule. When I actually polled it, it wasn't 80% of your partners that are performing, or that are not performing. It's only 18% of your partners that are performing, and 82% are not performing. My ratios were 83% of my partners were performing, executing. I only had 17% that were not. What did I do different? So the first thing I did is the orientation. As soon as that person applied, I have 2 minutes to call that person up because it takes 7 phone calls before you catch the person on the phone. So I don't want to spend all my time calling. I just want to connect with them. Second is then I take them through an orientation. If they haven't seen the product, I show it. If I've shown them the product beforehand, I show their team members. I also try to get everybody all the salespeople into the orientation, not just the owner. He doesn't sell. Mm-hmm. Okay. The next thing is I move this through. We then move to the portal site. It takes me 7 minutes to take somebody through the portal, show them the 5 basic policies they have to understand. Sort of like HR, everyone has to understand those same things. Once they do that, I never leave a meeting without setting up the next meeting, because again, the 7 phone calls to catch the next person. So with the next meeting, it's going to be a marketing meeting. In that meeting, I'm not going to set up a marketing plan. That's rubbish. Nobody likes to write them, no one likes to read them, and no one likes to follow it. So I come up with a plan of action, 3 things. Here's one of the things I discovered that made the difference between the 82%, 83% that I have that stick. Those that die, the 83% or the 82% of most of the people that don't come on board or that don't sort of sell, 97% of those people, you're going to lose them in the first 90 days. So the first 90 days is all hands on deck. So I have a 90-day promotion that I run. In the first 90 days, I'm going to do 3 things. Number 1, I'm going to get the product on their website. Why? Because then they will generate their own demand. It's not just the product on the website. It's a landing page. I have samples over the channel showing what these landing pages have 100% SEO. They will always pull the top 3 positions, and over 70% pull the first position. Once they get those leads in, now you can talk about training. Okay, you don't talk about training too soon. I had one company that had like 5 weeks of training before they've even sold anything. It's like, look, you're going to lose these partners in the first 90 days. Wrong time to set the training. Get the leads flowing. Then they're excited about training. Man, they're demanding training because they've got questions coming in. That's the place where you sequence the training. After that, the next thing you do is you do an email campaign to launch and announce that you now carry the product. Okay, they come on board in 2 phases. The first phase is sort of looky-loo. They sign up and everything else. When they actually put the product on their website, they may have some competitors of yours that are also there. They now have to explain it. They're sort of coming out. And so at that stage, that's big. The first thing that'll get that to happen quicker is the email campaign announcing it. What do they announce? A webinar. Why a webinar? They don't know how to demo the product. They don't know how to show it, but they've got some existing customers. They need to get early wins. They need to make sure that in the first 90 days, they're getting some sales coming through, or they're not salespeople. 97% of those that die, they didn't sell in that first 90 days. That's why. So we do a webinar. Who gives a webinar? You do. You can do the Dog and Pony Show. Not a problem. If they want to pull 25 of their good people in, you'll do the Dog and Pony Show. You do those 3 things alone, and take them through this fast orientation process. And then the training could go along the way. You will flip your ratios like I flipped mine.
So Jennifer, we have a few minutes left. I do want to open up for questions, but I do want to ask you, as you're building, right, these different tracks like affiliate, agency partner, solution partner, and then kind of going back to these drip enablement. Do you have one certification, or you have multi? Like, how do you make sure they're actually truly getting enabled? Is sales your measure of success? Like, how do you measure onboarding and enabling in those 3 tracks?
I don't know how I follow his passion, but sorry that I have to be the last one you have to hear from. But so we do have just one certification right now. Apollo, I feel like we didn't rely too much on our agency partners to do onboarding and implementation for us, and now we're moving that way, and we've realized we have a ton of really great agency partners, and they don't just want to refer us business. It needs to be a win-win, and a win-win for them is being able to help with implementation, like us sending customers to them. So what we started doing immediately when a partner joins, we have partner hours that we require them to meet our team. Again, we're a small team, but those partner hours, it's like a couple of people in one of the sessions. So we get to know them, and we set up dedicated Slack channels so that they can easily communicate with us. And then we set up the certification program where it's just an hour and a half training, but we have a ton of material. Apollo it's pretty simple, but it's becoming more complex as a tool. So this could change depending on the product, but ours is pretty straightforward. We have a free plan so they can go in and play around with the product. We have a lot of content that we provide to the partners. And so there's so much more that we need to do, but we only have one certification right now. And we also have monthly success series where each month we're featuring one of our new product launches, and that's exclusive to our partners, so they actually know how to sell it. So we just are trying to be very accessible for our partners so that they feel confident selling on our behalf. But that's what we're doing as enablement today. We have a partner day that's like once a year, and this is a great way for partners to come to us if they need anything. We talk about all of the things we have planned in the roadmap. So there's so much more that we could do for enablement, especially on the agency and technology side of things. Affiliates is easy. They just create content and then they promote us. So now that we're going and we're very bullish on our technology and agency partners, we're going to have to focus on enablement. We don't have anyone dedicated internally to support us. So it's just us working with the marketing team, taking content from our webinars, et cetera. So that's an area of focus, especially now that we've built good relationships with our partners and we ask them, hey, what do you need to be successful? And so we're doing stuff ad hoc here and there, but it is going to be a focus. So maybe I need to reach out to you to get some help.
Terrific. Well, the hour just went by, so we're going to wrap this up. Thank you.
Okay.